This is Josh Nathan Kazis.
And Gal Beckerman, reporters at the Forward.
We've been working for a number of weeks on a story about the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement on campuses in North America. This is the international campaign to impose sanctions and boycotts upon Israel, modeled after the successful campaign that sort of peaked in the 1980s against the South African apartheid regime. This story had its roots, I think, in a conference that I attended in November, the General Assembly of the Jewish Federations of North America. That conference took place a few months after this incident at the University of California at Berkeley, where pro-Palestinian students were able to pass a resolution, or at least initially pass a resolution, calling on the University of California to divest from various companies that supplied arms to the Israeli military. That resolution was eventually vetoed. However, Jewish groups were very exercised about the possibility that this was the beginning of a wave of incidents. And at the convention, a new organization was announced, launched a $6 million group called the Israel Action Network that was to and has been working to combat these efforts at delegitimization. But so we thought it would be useful to try to quantify what is actually going on, particularly on campuses, in terms of the BDS movement. So Gal and I contacted activist groups on both sides of the issue and tried to sort of tabulate the number of BDS incidents, significant BDS incidents on campuses in North America since 2005. And the number we came up with, I think, surprised us. We're still sort of working out the edges here, but it looks like the final number is under 20, somewhere between 17 and 20, and it's sort of localized at a small number of campuses. 3 of these incidents were at one campus, University of Michigan Dearborn, 2 more at University of Michigan Ann Arbor, and 2 others at University of California campuses. So this is not a broad, or at least these significant instances are not happening all over the country.
But what was maybe even more interesting was when we spoke to BDS activists and anti-BDS activists in the Jewish community. They both kind of used the same language to describe the significance of these types of activities and really downplayed the actual quantitative element here of the number of successes. For each of them, for both sides, it was more about the kind of conversation that such an action starts on campuses. So at Berkeley, for example, the fact that a divestment campaign was begun, one very prominent pro-Palestinian activist told me that, it didn't really matter whether or not it succeeded. By the end of this period of debate, the entire campus was talking about whether or not the university should divest from Israel. So at the end of the day, the takeaway from this story was this strange kind of convergence in which what actually is being engaged in is a kind of a very airy battle of rhetoric between these two sides. But when it comes down to the nuts and bolts of what they're actually achieving or fighting, it turns out to be very little.